We're just waiting on Danny.
Looks like there's somebody in the waiting room. 3 people.
Yeah, I gotta. Yep, Danny's here.
Brett Kopp, maybe, and Molly Wiedemann.
For the Zoom meeting, do we need to be in that or just the audio?
What's
Julie,
happening?
be in either one.
Be in that or just the audio?
I would just be in your audio, because if not, it's gonna echo.
How are you? I'd
Okay.
mute your YouTube.
I would just be in your audio. Okay, there we go. Never mind.
Echo.
Can you hear me?
Is that you, Danny?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I can't. Can you see me?
No,
Okay. Oh,
you have to turn your camera on.
There it is.
all right.
How do I get?
We've already got 13 subscribers. Man, we're getting popular quick. I'm assuming those are going to be staff members. Only the staff members have passwords. As long as nobody shared it out on like social media.
All right, are we ready to start?
I only see 3 people.
You'll have to scroll over to see all the other people.
I see. Okay.
I think so, Brennan.
All right, I will do the roll call
I'll put this-
at 5:03 p.m. Mr. King,
Present.
Ms. Reese, Ms. Mansfield,
Here.
Ms. Sebastian,
Here.
Mr. Elam.
Here.
Julie, are you on? Is she muted, Brendan?
No, she's unmuted.
No,
I
am
need to
I
call
on?
in.
Am I on what?
There you go.
Okay, you're here. We're just making sure you're available.
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm not on Zoom, and I can't see the YouTube.
Okay. All right. Well, Brendan just called the roll. Everyone's present. Hopefully our community will be patient with us as we work through new technology and one of the most precedented environments that all of us have pretty much lived in. It's been 102 years since something like this has happened. We have unprecedented guidance from our governor that's changing the way we do business. So thank you all for being patient with us as we try and work this new virtual platform. We know that the community likes to hear what's happening at the school, especially without their kids being here. And as we continue to move forward, continuing with our school to keep it in motion, right? So we prepare for whenever we need to go back. So with that, is there any additions to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll do the superintendent's report, items requiring board action to Mr. Firks.
There's one item. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. There's one item on the agenda for this evening. Item number 1 has to do with supplemental employment in regards to, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, Amanda Weichert, cheerleader advisor for junior high. The reason why this was added at the end of the season, we had several communications with the athletic director in regards to this position. They had somebody in mind, but before they could start, they had to finish necessary OHSAA required coursework and then also receive the required background checks. They were not able to complete all of that information or submit it in time. Mrs. Weichert had covered both the high school and the junior high throughout the course of the year. And we felt as the season approached the end that it was the only thing that the right thing to do was to pay her for her time doing both the high school and the middle school. And that's why she was added on the agenda, to ensure that she gets paid for the junior high season.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to place the item from the superintendent's report on the consent calendar?
I move.
Thank you, Mansfield. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oops.
Thank
Julie.
you, Julie, for the second. Any discussion? Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
All right. Do we have a motion to adopt that consent calendar with the item from the superintendent's report?
I'll move.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny. Any discussion? All right. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Now we move on to the items of discussion. Item number 1 is strategic plan update.
As far as number 1 with the strategic plan update, have sent out an email to the board members indicating that the Zoom meeting to continue this process is scheduled for April 16th. Impact Group will be doing a virtual online platform discussing with the admin team from 1 o'clock to 3 p.m. on April 16th. And then on that same day, they will be meeting virtually with the Board of Education members at 5:30 p.m. They provided some sort of a rough overarching goals. Obviously, that's up for discussion and being able to tweak and change as we see fit. But they took a lot of the information that they were able to gather from the various community forums, online surveys, meetings with staff, meetings with students, other constituents that they met with to kind of come up with those overarching goals. But obviously, it's a rough draft for now, and it's open to a lot of discussion, potential changes, and tweaking it how the community and the school board sees the best fit for the plan moving forward.
Okay. Speaking of that meeting, will we have to put out a notice to the community that we're hosting that meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And Justin, do you know if were they able to complete their community meetings and other meetings with like the staff and the students, and lastly is the administrators and then us?
Yes, yeah, they were able to get all that information completed. We were scheduled to have a face-to-face meeting right when the first pandemic outbreak started, and then when the governor closed down school, we obviously canceled the meeting or postponed the meeting. We had waited a little bit to see if we could potentially get it done face-to-face, but when the order was extended, we felt like to continue to move forward with the process so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, we would potentially look at having a similar online type meeting to make progress with the document.
I copy that. We know, at least from my perspective, it's it's a pretty significant document that will assist us as we move out in the years to come. So anyone else have discussion topics on the strategic plan? Okay, hearing none, next one up is the facilities meeting status and any further discussion on approving the modular contracts.
With item number 2, I am meeting with Will Scott tomorrow. It'll be myself, Mr. Hattery, and also Mr. Chapman. We will sit down with a number of questions that we received via email and work through those questions to get answers so that on the board meeting Monday, we'll be able to discuss those publicly. I will also send out an email prior to that to the board so that you have time to review the responses. As far as the facilities meetings with the community forum, I don't know if that's what you're exactly talking about, but I'll throw this out here as well. I have had conversations with Levin Porter, with Mike and Mark, and they have also discussed the potential opportunity with, obviously, Board of Education approval of continuing our forums, but similar into this same format, being able to post them on YouTube to allow community members to ask questions and respond. We could also attach survey questions, as they conduct the meeting to allow people to give feedback based on the information provided, that we can continue moving forward with that project so that we could have some sort of a recommendation made by July. But obviously that, is going to be determined upon your guys' thoughts on that process and how do you feel about it being held in this kind of similar, same fashion.
I think it's pretty important to get the community input, and I think it's worth trying in this format to communicate with the community so we can get those key strategic elements and ideas that our community thinks is correct for a new facility. So I'm willing to log in and try and see how it comes. The other question would be, did we want to try and continue facilities committee meetings via Zoom, like kind of like what we're doing here, or like how the community meetings would be taking place? Is what kind of Lori had here. Or are we going to wait till Levin Porter does their piece and then decide on the next facility meeting? Just kind of looking for what your guidance is or what everyone else's thoughts are.
How do the rest of the board members feel?
I think trying to
Hear
keep,
me?
I think trying to keep to
Hello?
the original schedule as much as we can is kind of important.
Yeah, I hear Julie's trying to say something too. I agree with you, Danny. Trying to stick with a schedule and as much as we can and keep things on pace is going to be really important. But obviously, we need to try and do it in this virtual environment and still hear the community and get feedback as much as possible. Because without that component, it's really difficult to know what they want.
I agree.
Julie, you're trying to chime in?
Yeah, sorry. I got dropped before during the strategic plan, so I'm back now. But that begs the question, how will this be done? Because like I can't even use Zoom from home. I'm on Spectrum on a home plan. I can barely use YouTube. Actually, it finally came up, but would it just be, would people be allowed in the phone call, or are we worried about this hijacking thing that came out? I mean, how would we run the virtual meeting?
I think we'd be able to do it by the phone call as well. They would just miss out on being able to see any charts or PowerPoints from those aspects. But their voice.
Right. I'm not saying not do that also, but I'm just saying that, not everybody will have that option. Maybe we can put charts out to download just because of the technology. And then some people don't even have technology, right? Some of the older folks may not use it. So I agree, though, that we should stay on schedule as much as we can, because we need to start talking about things that we're going to do once the trailer space is gone. I know we're hoping for 2 years, but if we don't start talking about that now, we're going to run into the same problem where we wind up with trailers because we didn't take action. So I don't think we want to put things off if we can continue to do this and finalize our plan, a master plan, I mean.
I guess the real question for me, and maybe from what I talked to Brennan and Justin, what is the point of the facilities committee meetings in May and June?
I think maybe we're talking two different things. One is staying on schedule with the meetings with the architect for our ELP, and the part B, which I don't think has been addressed, is the facility committee meetings.
Correct.
So I think we're all on point of trying to stay on track with our meetings with Leave-In Porter in our community and getting those aspects. So the question, since that's answered, the question would be, is do we continue facilities committee meetings, or we wait until after Leave-In Porter has completed all of their assessments? Or meetings.
Well, I was referring to both. I think we should continue the facilities committee meetings in part to get status, right? Because that was part of the schedule that Leave-In Porter suggested, was having the facilities committee meeting and coming back and giving a summary and planning for the next meeting. I know we've kind of lost some time in there, so I'm not sure there's going to be as many meetings. But I mean, I think it's good to get the group together and talk about the stuff.
I think it makes sense to have the next facilities committee meeting, at least just to see how we're regrouping, since we missed a community forum, and make sure everybody's going to get the questions answered. We're going to cover in 2 meetings, that we're going to, cover 2 meetings in 1, just to get everybody on the same page and make sure that, if we're cutting anything out or how we're going to consolidate, and make sure everybody's on the same page there. And then if you're going to, what Lori was asking about was June and July, or May and June. Which were those, Lori?
Well, really, it's, I guess, are we going to do a facilities meeting in April? Because that's Monday.
Yeah, so I think the April one makes sense, because we really are trying to put 2 community forums into 1. And I think just to let everybody have a chance to discuss what's going on there. But I agree with May might be a little bit less necessary.
So can Leave-In Porter get the facilities committee, the questions and everything by Friday? Can Mike do that, Justin?
That I could give him a call. He actually just called in when we were on this meeting, and I didn't answer
Okay.
it. So I'll give him a ring back at the end of this meeting, or depending upon how long it lasts, tomorrow morning. Run by Monday's date, see if that works for him as far as availability to be there, and then also see if he could provide the questions to the board and the facilities committee, Thursday or Friday of this week, to allow the weekend to review, so that if you guys have any questions or suggestions on how to alter it, they can be made for the meeting. If that works.
Yeah, that sounds great, Mr. Turks, as well as also, if they're not ready by Monday to do that, then just advise when he'll be available, so that we can try and set a date. It'll be virtual.
Okay.
For people to get a different day and time.
Yeah, I'll run by him and when the first available date for those are, and if it's not Friday, I'll let you know, and then I will get that information to you sent out in a email with an attachment as soon as I get them, so that you have time to review, make suggestions, and potential changes before the next community forum meeting.
And then do we know when the next community forum meeting is going to be? Are we going to for the 3rd Monday?
It'll be on that same date. So the date that we had scheduled would be April 20th.
Okay.
So the plan would still be at 7 o'clock. It may just, more than likely, it will not be at Bethel Hall. It'll be virtually, and we'll have to figure out formatting wise, and we'll keep you in the loop on that. And then once we have established a format, we'll get the login information and the passwords and all that stuff sent out. And then figure out how we're going to stream it live for community members to view as well, and then also record it so that we can post a link to our website so that community members can view it if they're not able to watch it live.
And I think that would be great too, because a lot of times we'll put those questions up as survey questions afterwards, so they'd be able to see the full video and then answer based on all the information that they can watch in the presentation. So I think that'll be a benefit all the way.
Yeah, that would be the idea, would be to have the questions attached to the video so that they can watch and then take the survey as they watch the video.
That sounds wonderful. Okay. Julie, you have something, or Danny?
No.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the facility? Okay.
Can we just go back to the strategic plan for a second, since I got dropped?
Sure, go right ahead.
I just want to ask one question. Since I missed the conversation, is there going to be documents or some kind of information distributed before the meeting that we need to review?
It was emailed to you folks this afternoon or this morning.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, I perused through it real quick.
Yeah, so it's just some overarching goals that the impact group put together based on the conversations that they had with the staff, the students, community, et cetera. Obviously, it's open for adjusting, changing, tweaking, whatever the verbiage you want to use for it. That obviously will be part of that discussion during our Zoom meeting, but they sent a document and I emailed it out to the admin team, and then I also emailed it out to the board earlier today. And the meeting is scheduled for April 16th from 1 to 3 p.m. will be the admin team. And then on April 16th at 5:30 p.m. will be the board. Once we get the platform finalized, we'll send out the call-in information and passwords and all that stuff like we did this evening.
Okay, thanks. And can I just ask a silly question? Why are there two separate meetings? Why is it just not one meeting with everybody?
It can be if you'd like it to be. I wasn't sure of board members' availability during the day.
Oh, so just because of the time. Okay.
And I think too, Julie, it's good for them to hear unfettered information from the other administrators, so we can get a solid objectives and plan to fit the needs.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I was just asking. I mean, as you guys know, I kind of like for everybody to hear everything, because we miss out on probably some good points in conversation by not being in the same meeting. But I'm okay with it. I was just curious.
Okay, copy. All right, so we'll move on to number 3, that review of board policy 1433 in regards to staff vacation, holidays, and other benefits.
Jacob, you had asked us to look at that, so I had it on the agenda for you, so you can take the lead.
All right, copy that. The only reason I brought that up was because I didn't think it was in alignment with what we had in contracts and what we were trying to do with some of our classified, if I say that correctly, some of our classified contracts, administrative contracts weren't in alignment with that policy. And so that's all I was trying to make sure we had it. If we needed to change that policy, come in alignment with what we were doing with the contracts. In regards to the number of days, right, that they could keep, roll over to the next following year based on their vacation time.
That would be under a different policy related to vacation. This policy listed here is for administrators. So each administrator's contract for staff vacation is negotiated in their individual contract, because not all administrators are 260 or 12 months. Some are 210, some are 220, and some are 230. So the only thing that we're technically not, would say in alignment with, but we kind of are, is where it talks about the incentive pay. That's towards the superintendent of the base salary increase, and that's on the recommendation of the superintendent's recommendation. I would say I've only been here for 1 year of contracts for administrators, and it was the same percentage for every administrator.
Okay.
Whereas this policy allows it to be from 1 to 5%.
Okay.
But
That would be the only thing that we're not in line with, but I don't think there's anything that would, in my professional opinion, that needs to be changed.
Okay.
is the incentive, the 1 to 5% you're talking about though, that's not a raise though, right? That's like a bonus payment. Or am I not?
It's a 1 to 5% of the base salary incentive step. So, like I said, it would be a matter of interpretation.
Okay.
And I don't
As a
know,
part of their evaluation.
since I've been on the board, we've always given consistent percentage increases when we've given increases across the board to administrators, to my knowledge. In other districts, I've seen them give a superintendent bonus like what you're suggesting, Julie. I have very mixed feelings about that, I'll be quite honest.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe I didn't interpret it like Brennan says, it's interpretation, I guess, but it doesn't, rereading it, it doesn't read either way that it's a salary increase or a one-time bonus payment. But I mean, it's the criteria, I guess, are what led me to think that way, because it's above and beyond kind of things. And typically that's a bonus payment, not an increase to the salary. Right. So, I mean, that was the only reason I guess I assumed it was a bonus payment.
Right. I think the last sentence where it says that the incentive step shall be paid each year is determined to be appropriate by the superintendent kind of keeps it from being like an automated every single year, forever kind of thing.
Right. Right. And then the other policy that Brennan was talking about was 4433. When you originally brought this up, Jacob, we talked about both. I don't know, I guess looking at both of them.
Yes, and maybe that's why I was getting them confused. They're so close. Brendan, is there a way that we could reach back to our policy, Neola, to ensure that all those policies are still correct? And I believe also we're looking at other ways to reach out to some of our teachers and staff and administrators for performance, different pieces of that. I thought is what part of that conversation as well.
Right. So when you look at board policies, the thousands are administrators. So those are the policies that are only governed towards the administrators. Then you have your classified staff or professional staff that's labeled in the policy. Then you have your classified staff. So each area has their own policies. The one that we changed was related to vacation, because for administrators, vacation is determined by their individual contract, because it's not specifically stated. So each administrator contract specifically in there is their negotiation vacation policy and leave and how many they get. Whereas classified and certified, it's documented in the union agreement for certified, and for classified, it's documented in the classified vacation policy.
Thank you for clearing that up, Brendan. I appreciate that. And just to clarify, I don't think we're just looking to make sure we're doing things right and making sure that if we had an opportunity to reward other things, that we would have avenues to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions in regard to board policy 1433? All right.
So what's the next step? Are we letting it stand as is, or what are we doing? Do we
I
need to
just,
take further action?
the only thing I asked was, is it we have Neola review maybe all of the board policies in regards to that fit in the same category to ensure that they're the most up to date from Neola?
What do you mean up to date? You mean compared to what they have, or?
Compared to what the Ohio laws are and the any new changes from in the Ohio Revised Code.
Okay, gotcha.
And if there is,
And reading the policy, again, that incentive pay is on a one-time basis, because if you look at the second sentence, it says, unless a different action is taken by the board, the salary of administrative staff shall increase the same percentage as the negotiation base percentage increase.
okay. So if
But I
we,
can reach out and make sure that this policy is, I would imagine it's in line, because we go through NOAA reviews twice a year for policy. And so they review our policies that we have, and if there's anything that needs to be changed due to updates in laws or revised codes, they notify us.
okay, and based on this review, not only from the aspect of we're meeting the requirements of our own policy, is there any changes that we thought are looking that need to be changed across all of those policies?
Okay.
From yours or Mr. Ferks's perspective.
The other thing we could do, Jacob, is when I go out and check some of those other policies from other districts, I can see what other districts have in place too, if they have anything different. That's just kind of a good reference. Not saying we have to do that.
Brennan or Justin, did you have any recommendations?
I was scheduled to meet with Neola right at the beginning of our current situation. Obviously, we had the plan for the revamping of school in a day and a half, so I had to cancel the meeting with our Neola rep, and we have not touched base with him since the shutdown to do our spring annual review. So Della will be in again tomorrow. I will have her reach out to Mr. Burkhart, see if we can get some sort of a similar format meeting scheduled, and then be able to meet with him, go over our annual updates, but then also have a discussion with him in regards to reviewing our current policies that match the 100 levels with admin and contracts, and see if everything's current and up to date.
Excellent, thank you. And since you brought it up, I have to say that the execution of the school shutdown seemed to be practically flawless, superior execution by you, the administrative team, the front office group, and all our teachers and staff. So I really appreciate your leadership during these trying times and at the very beginning of it. So it's pretty awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I think we all echo that.
Yeah.
Preston.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've heard from other parents even say like, "Oh my gosh, there's their personal experience at another educational facility was chaotic, and how we were so level and everything was calm and everything was ready." So just appreciate all. And I know all the board members do, as we speak individually from time to time. That's everybody's echoed that. So.
Well, on behalf of the school, we appreciate the kind words. And once we get to number 5, I'll give the community kind of a rundown of what we've been doing and kind of all the things going on in the building still, so that people are aware of the work that's kind of going on behind the scenes and the people that are making it happen. So we'll get to that in number 5.
Yeah, I think most people that are probably on are anticipating number 5 and 7. So we won't hold them up. But number 4, contract renewals for 2020, 2021 school year and new hires.
Okay, so based on discussion today in central office, we are going to remain on schedule as far as schedules that have been used in previous years, also based on Ohio Revised Code as far as contract expirations and renewals. Our plan is to have certified staff, which would be teachers, on the agenda for consideration in April. And then in May, we will have classified staff members on the agenda for consideration. Well, hopefully we're in a May board meeting, but if we don't and we have to have it virtually, we'll have it online for consideration as well, because we have to maintain or adhere to contract dates and, you know, automatic renewals if you don't meet dates as far as when they need to be moving forward with. Is there any questions in regards to that at all?
I'm sorry, you said that we're going, next week we'll be voting for new hires?
Next week will be for renewals of the certified staff, the teachers.
Oh, okay.
And then in May will be the consideration of classified staff for renewals. As far as our new hires, we are actually going through the interview process right now.
Okay.
I do not anticipate having any on next week's agenda for official hire.
Well, thank you. I didn't think that you would. Thanks.
Are you proposing any continuing contracts, or are the administrative team proposing any individuals to receive continuing contracts? Because typically we would get those before the, you know, just to make sure there's no issues.
I will double check with them first thing tomorrow. The only thing I've received were individuals that are on the agenda for 1-year limited contracts. I will have to check on continuings. Once I get that email response from those folks, I will let you guys know ASAP.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions in regards to number 4?
No, thank you.
Excellent. And I think we go to number 5, graduation, end of school year.
Okay, so obviously there's been a lot of changes that have been approved by not only the governor of Ohio, but the state legislature in Columbus and the Ohio Department of Education. And so, as many people already know, just to give a quick recap, the 3rd grade reading guarantee requirements have been waived for the 2019-2020 school year. So that means all 3rd grade students who maybe were having a little bit of a struggle with the 3rd grade reading guarantee, they will all be promoted to 4th grade for next year, unless we receive some sort of a retention recommendation from a parent who would like their child to be remain in 3rd grade because of some struggles academically or socially. So we do anticipate all students to move forward with the 3rd grade reading guarantee. Also, graduation requirements. The state of Ohio has come out and has indicated that students that were on track or based upon administration recommendation could move forward with graduation. Obviously, Mr. Swope and the high school teachers are working as well as they possibly can with our students remotely through our remote educational learning opportunities. You know, obviously the 4th quarter is going to play into that a little bit as we continue to talk about grades here in a bit, but we would not anticipate right now any students not meeting graduation requirements as well. The state of Ohio has also waived state standardized testing for all students in the 2019-2020 school year. So our upcoming or current spring state testing has been foregone for the rest of this school year. Mr. Swope has also, during our meetings that we've had with the admin team and in preparation for the remainder of this year and beyond, has discussed very important student experiences such as graduation and prom. Those would be 2 of the big ones that are, I think, on seniors' minds and probably high school students' minds in general. He has sent out a survey to the members of the senior class in regards to graduation to kind of get some feedback or input from them on when they would like to prefer if graduation would get postponed, when we could potentially hold that. And Personally, I think it's very, very important to try to provide, obviously in a safe and secure environment, it's our first priority, but if we can, as many of these opportunities for our students as we possibly can. So we've even talked about potentially holding graduation in June, July, or August if need be. We've talked about obviously having it in the gym, but if we couldn't have it indoors, looking at some sort of a remote graduation. We've even talked about potentially having it outside at the football stadium. So, obviously there's a lot determined or going to be determined upon upcoming guidance that we get from the state of Ohio. As of now, it's scheduled for as is, but we're planning ahead and planning for the unexpected. Same thing would be with prom also. He's trying to get some feedback from the students to see what their level of interest would be, even if it's having prom or holding prom, on site here in the high school gymnasium and decorating the gym. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but we're looking at all options. As far as other end of year items, grade card wise, we have discussed and kind of determined that with the fourth quarter, that for students in grades kindergarten through 8th grade, we'll be looking at some sort of a pass incomplete type grade that will be disseminated. For students that are in 8th grade and taking college credit level courses, and those students that are in 9 through 12, we will continue with the traditional grading scale as is. The two biggest reasons for that decision had to do with OHSAA eligibility. And so the state of Ohio and the Ohio High School Athletic Association has come out and said that if a school, which they do have the right to use pass, fail, or satisfactory, unsatisfactory 9 through 12, if you do that, you cannot use those grading schedules or scales for athletic eligibility in the fall. The NCAA clearinghouse for any student athletes that we have that may want to go on and play at the next level, the NCAA clearinghouse also does not accept pass, fail, pass incomplete, or satisfactory and unsatisfactory grading scales with their acceptance of those NCAA clearinghouse documents for eligibility at the college level. So that's kind of what we're looking at now. Mr. Swope's done a great job of being in communication with the staff and kind of indicating to them that obviously, as we've talked about and we've heard numerous times, we're in very unprecedented, uncharted waters at this point. And obviously, we don't understand necessarily what's going on to a high level with all of these students at home, with family lives, et cetera. And so we're really trying to stress, grades or grace over grades and being patient and being flexible and trying to work with our students as much as we can, being in as much communication with Zoom sessions, reaching out to them individually via phone calls, all of those kind of things to try to work with kids because for some students, school might not be the highest priority right now with the other things that are going on. And so that's kind of where we're at with graduation in the end of the year. But I'm open to suggestions or comments on any of that discussion.
Yeah. Well, this is Jacob, and I think that's great that we're looking out ahead. I just did a quick view from the Ohio Department of Health's prediction center, and they're still showing 400, 500 cases, new cases a day, all the way out to May 27th. So May 27th.
Wow.
So we're still, we're not at a massive level that we will be at as they're predicting mid-April, but it's still showing prevalent, and it's only around 500 a day additional if we continue to have strict guidelines, social distancing guidelines. At least that's what they're doing on their prediction model, and their model is a little off. So according to that, we should have had over 1,000 new cases today, and we're just not there yet. So that bubble may slide to the right from where it is now. But I think it's great. I know that seniors want to have a prom. I know seniors want to, we all want our families to be there for our graduation in those aspects as well. And I think that when we're looking at options, we need to maximize any option. I know I've seen a couple of places were graduating, having the kids in their car and doing the graduation ceremony. One would, they would walk up and receive it and go back to their car. So I know there's a lot of crazy options out there, but the best thing I think is planning and looking ahead of in initiating any of those options.
Well, ironically, that was one of the discussions that we had as well during our meeting. So we just we follow social media as much as anybody, and we see what other people are doing or talking about or ideas they're coming up with. And so we beg, borrow, and steal a lot of stuff, and we try to make it ours if it works. And we're throwing a bunch of ideas out on the table. We have not, obviously, we're planning for graduation here at Bethel as is, but we're also trying to be prepared if it gets pushed out further.
So Justin, I want to go back to the testing that's waived for just a minute and clarify if you know. So if a student has an end of course test in algebra that's been waived this year, is that going to be waived their entire high school career or just this year? Because that's a big deal if students have to make that test up next year when the information isn't as fresh.
That was exactly my question. Thank you.
That is a great question. Obviously, I'm trying to stay up to date on all the stuff that comes out as much as I can. I have not seen anything on that yet. If it's out there, I apologize. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but what I can do is tomorrow morning when I get in here, I'll start researching that and making some phone calls and find out if there has been guidance put forth in regards to, yes, they're waived for this year, but does that carry forward for their entire academic standing throughout high school? And then if so, then we're fine. If not, then how do we start planning for that? So that's a very good question that I'm going to have to find out some more information on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a question on the third grade reading requirements being waived. So you guys mentioned that you will hold somebody back if the parents request it, but are we recommending to any parents? I know Ms. Petty and Mrs. Roll have put a lot of effort into this reading program, and I didn't know if we were going the opposite way too. Or is it only if the parents request it?
The third grade reading guarantee, I mean, are you indicating that's not a program that was put in place by Bethel? That's a requirement from the state of Ohio.
No, I know, but I mean, I know they put a lot of effort into that, into making sure that everybody gets the right attention and focus, as people fall behind or whatever. So I'm just asking.
I think staff members are having conversations with parents that were borderline at risk, but I think my personal stance is I think the district would be putting themselves into a bad predicament if we started holding kids back when the state of Ohio is allowing us to push them forward. If during those conversations with parents, the staff and the parent mutually agree that holding a student back is the best course of action for that individual student based on that individual case-by-case basis, then I think I think that's probably the best course.
I like your wording better, that they're having the conversation together.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was asking was, is it just not the parent that has to recognize the issue? Okay,
no,
perfect.
But I also want to state on record that, if the school thinks the student should be held back and a parent does not, then we're not going to be in a position that we're going to hold kids back if they've waived the third grade reading guarantee. That's just my own personal opinion on it. But yeah, I know that the teachers are continuing to have conversations with those parents, and if they can come to a mutual agreement. But I think in the past, if memory serves me correctly from the conversations that I've had with Mrs. Roll and Ms. Petty in regards to this, I think they had indicated in the last meeting that, even though if the school makes a recommendation for retention, the parent still has to agree to do it. Now, if I had stated that and it's incorrect, then obviously I'll retract that statement in our next meeting. But I do think that the parent has to agree to it.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another question. What happens with the scholarships for the students? Are they still able to apply for all these things, or I just don't know. I'm just asking. Or is that just not a priority anymore?
Probably already.
It's a great question. Yeah, a lot of them have already been applied for. I'm not sure, deadline-wise, that if you're talking about scholarships that are awarded here at like an academic awards banquet, or are you talking about scholarships just in general?
No, the ones that are awarded at the school.
I think probably a lot of them have been applied for already. I can't, state that 100% accurately. I'd have to follow up with Mr. Swope and have him check in with Mrs. Wiedemann, Mrs. Lance in regards to deadlines for that and applications and those kind of things.
Okay.
I can follow up with Mr. Swope in regards to scholarships.
And this is Jacob, and the counseling department has been extremely active on Twitter, and they've been putting a ton of information out about deadlines for scholarships, what scholarships are available. They put out the students could contact them for assistance in their scholarships. So I've seen that at least on social media.
Okay, thank you.
I got a couple responses from YouTube. According to Ms. Wiedemann and Brewer, they are still applying for the scholarships, and a couple of the deadlines have been postponed as well.
Okay.
That's excellent information. Thank you. Any other comments or questions in regards to number 5?
I like the thought of having the prom at school, especially if the funds aren't there, be off campus somewhere, and they might not have enough money, and dates might not be available for who knows how long. So I think that's good thinking and good planning there. Thank you for trying to keep everything traditional.
You're welcome.
Oh, and I did want to let everybody know, this is a little off topic, but Miss Wolford emailed us this week, and the trip that was planned to Nashville, we are getting refunded the money for the trip by the company, less $35. And a shout out and thank you to Music Boosters, who's covering the $35 fee. So everybody will get fully refunded for that trip.
It's great news.
I think that's absolutely fantastic, and just another example of the support that our organizations have for our students and our school. That's wonderful. All right.
In addition, as far as end of school year and kind of what's going on now, I know there's been some questions in regards to personnel and kind of what's going on around the school. Did send an email update out to the staff. First and foremost, the teaching staff's been outstanding. I've heard a ton of positive comments from the level of communication they've had with students, utilizing Google Hangouts, Zoom, their Class Dojo models, and just trying to stay in touch with the kids as much as possible, trying to provide educational opportunities for the kids as much as possible. And so, first and foremost, the staff's been great. In addition to some of the happenings that have been going on around the school, we have had maintenance and custodial staff reporting. So it'd be Jimmy Chapman, Kevin Hall, Anna Durst, Melissa Rhodes, Derek Swannigan, and Ryan Lowe. They've been working a lot, extensively throughout the buildings, deep cleaning bathrooms, stripping and waxing of floors, scrubbing cafeteria walls, cleaning all the floors, scrubbing the high school, middle school gym floors. Their most recent project they've taken on this week is replacing bulbs and ballasts in hallways and classrooms to brighten up the building, which I think the next time you're in the building, you'll notice a significant difference from the yellow tint bulbs to the new bright white lights. It's going to help classroom educational learning experience, and also some of the ballasts were faulty, so it's going to be a safety upgrade as well. A couple of ladies today started cleaning underneath and also the aisleways in the bleachers in the high school gymnasium to start preparing and getting the gym cleaned for graduation commencement ceremonies. Technology department's been in quite a bit, getting Chromebooks cleaned and ready for the K-1 students that will have access to iReady online. They've also started asset tagging inventory throughout the district. Inventory was probably an area that wasn't kept up on previously. Really trying to document all of our materials and resources in classrooms and throughout the building. They've also added this week a fax line into the elementary office Previously, when faxes would come up, they'd come into the central office. Elementary would have to walk up here to get any sort of a fax that was sent in for student registration, transfers, divorce decrees, separation of all kinds of different things. So they've been working extensively in that area. Special Education Department has continued to hold virtual Zoom IEP meetings to make sure that dates and deadlines are met and ETRs are being followed. So thanks to Tony Cochran and his staff. Technology Department would be Brian Perez and Jeff Coyle. And then also we've had a lot of office personnel in and out, making sure that payroll gets done, requisitions are getting processed. We're still accepting open enrollment forms, new enrollee forms for students that we're accepting into the district, and those kind of things. So there's been a lot of work being done virtually remotely at home by our staff. There's been a lot of work being done by essential personnel that's continuing to report to the district. So on behalf of the Bethel's local schools, I'd like to thank all those people that sometimes don't get recognized that are doing a lot of good work behind the scenes.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments? That was absolutely phenomenal, and it just goes to show the people that we have working in our school district and the care that they have not only for the learning process, but just for our school and our community. And it's literally amazing. You guys have amazed me every day with the teacher contact with my own children to what the staff does throughout the school. 100-year-old school building, and the floors look like they were brand new. So it's just amazing. So I really appreciate it. And I think my dad.
Yeah, it is outstanding, and it's amazing how in times of turmoil like this, there's always something positive that comes out of it. And our district exemplifies that on the regular anyway, let alone in super outstanding times like this. So thank you for everybody for everything that you're doing, and the teachers especially. I'm seeing what's going on with my own son too. So just it's been an amazing experience. You're seeing a lot of positives too. So thank you, everybody.
All right, moving on to number 6, we had board docs for agendas and meeting minutes.
This one's kind of my idea. I know we brought it up back a couple months ago. I really think we as a district should look at this to manage our agendas and meeting minutes. It takes a lot of effort from Della to print off all the material for each meeting and putting it together. Sometimes it takes a whole day, and that's all she can do. And I think her time could be utilized better. This would provide for us to be more efficient and effective. It would be kept up to date. It'd give you get an email every time a document was added or changed or something was added to the agenda. What I was wanting to do is see if the board would be willing at the next work session to have someone, if I can get it set up, from board docs to come and show you the benefits of having it, how you would navigate it on the board side, and the benefits of having it. We did get a quote. However, I'm not going to share that quote because the quote is expired, but they did tell me that there's a one-time charge and then you have a yearly fee. But I just feel with us keep growing and the meetings that we typically are having, it'd be something to not only that we could use for, I think for just our board meetings, but we also could use it for if we do like facility meetings or whenever we can run the finance committee meetings, we could use that as a platform as well.
I think it would be a great thing to have somebody come in and actually have a live demonstration. I know myself being the least tech savvy of every person on the board, would love to see how everything works.
So yeah, I agree with that. I'd like to see it. One of my big concerns last time was we thought there wasn't a push feature. So the email that alleviates a lot of concerns because you know, we don't want to have to get on every day and check to see if something's been posted. So my other questions would be, this means that nothing would be printed for the board meetings, correct?
We could still print a couple, but it wouldn't. Yeah, we wouldn't print like all the previous board meeting minutes. We would print a couple agendas, but we would have our thing on the projector, and then I would control it and go down. If you've ever been on a board docs agenda, each item has its own individual section, and so when you click on it, it brings everything for that section.
So I like that, but sometimes it's difficult to read things that are up on the screen, especially since our back's to the screen, we have to turn around stuff. So one question would be, so on the printing, if we wanted something printed, that I'm assuming that would not be a problem. We can just request that.
I would fully anticipate as well that the technology department would provide each board member and an admin with a Chromebook so that you can view it on your own device or any device that you wanted to bring to a meeting if one wasn't provided to you or you chose not to accept it.
Right.
Okay, that was going to be my next question because I have a tank of a laptop that I'm not intending to schlep around to look at documents. So, I thought you guys would break down and make me get a new one.
Yeah, like I'm thinking the idea would be we would have laptops available to us at the meeting that we could work from. So we're looking at it right in front of us instead of craning to see it on the screen. Like, I think that just makes sense. So, but in times like this, especially, how handy would it be to have everything delivered to us in one place where we can see what's going on? It's real-time delivery. I mean, no one's trying to rush up to school to be able to send something out to us. Like, you know, it's kind of nuts right now. So this would have been ideal for this situation.
Well, and the other thing with the continuation of the facilities and the building project moving forward, I'm tired of going back through emails and not being able to find things. I mean, it's no offense, but when I get incoming scan, I can't search on that. And, you know, 2 months later, I don't know where my information is. And it's not appropriate to send all that stuff in email. It needs to be on a separate system. And that's what, for me, that's what the benefit of board docs will be.
I would agree that's a benefit. I mean, because you do have to spend time organizing the things or else you can't find it. And we get a lot of stuff. I mean, I know not relative to what Justin and Brennan and everybody up there sees, but sometimes it's a lot.
I mean, I agree with the demo, but I kind of am frustrated that we're thinking about putting off the purchase for as long as we're talking about putting it off. That kind of, I don't want to wait as long as it sounds like we want to wait for like after a demo and then buy. Do we really have to do that? Can we put it on the agenda for next week is what I'm saying?
I would be okay with purchasing it next week, but I don't know what everybody else thinks about it.
Well, I'd like to know what the cost is.
Brendan, can you follow up on getting a new quote for us, please? That would be awesome.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
All right. And then I think if we have the new quote, then we'll be able to make an idea if we want it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Or if you feel it's within the right parameters and the right costs, then you can put it up and we'll see it in the review and be able to discuss it.
Okay. I will email them tomorrow and get the cost, and I will also talk to them about setting up a demo.
That would be great. I mean, I'm not saying the demo is not necessary by any stretch. I still think that's fabulous. And I don't want to rush anybody, but I think these are extraordinary circumstances and we really kind of need to get a little more organized with our situation. So.
Yeah, and with the thought that we could be holding our meetings this way for several meetings to go.
Absolutely.
So it's just.
Absolutely.
Well, and when we went to the new board member meeting up at the ESC, Tip uses this, and they sing its praises. So I mean, other districts use this and are seamless.
Brendan, as you're getting that quote, if there's any, quick guides or tutorials that you can send a link out on, that we could kind of view prior to, that would, I think, help as well, so we get an understanding.
Sure.
And if you could also ask them about how well it shares content between things, like, I don't know if it works, if it talks with Zoom or if it talks with other things like that, for making it easy to facilitate between running a meeting and looking at both screens for us. Or if we need to switch over to like WebEx or something like that instead.
I got you. I think one of the things would be like how Jacob has, we're sharing his screen. So
Yeah.
one of us would be able to put the board docs on our, if we have 2 monitors, and just share that screen. But yeah, I will ask them
Right.
how people that have it are using it to be better facilitators.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the risk there is obviously we see documents that other people don't see. So that's something to think about. No.
Yeah, and just for everyone's knowledge, not only am I sharing my screen, but I can also see everyone, and I still have all the controls. So, all right. Any other conversations in regards to board docs? All right. Next. Oops, sorry, hit mute. Next up on the agenda is coaches serving as administrators.
Wanted to reach out to the school board in regards to this. Obviously, we have a number of positions that are available this year. A couple of the ones that we're going to begin forming interview teams to start looking at, and that would also include staff and administrators. 2 positions in particular would be the athletic director position, and then I would also probably consider the communications director, an administration / quasi-administrator position as well. Before we move forward, I kind of want to gain some guidance from the school board, being relatively new here, on recent past practice, kind of what their thoughts are on having individuals serve in dual roles. Currently, for the athletic director position, we have 53 applicants for that position. Of the 53 applicants, 4 will be serving as coaches at various levels in various sports, starting with the 2021 school year. As far as our communications director position, we currently have 15 applicants, and 1 individual as a coach has applied for that. So a total of 5 coaches have applied for those 2 administrative positions. So kind of open to thoughts and suggestions and comments.
Well, in the past, we have had a number of people do this, and yes, Lori already mentioned that in the previous email. We've had a number of people. We've had 4 that I can think of do it. I don't know, however, we're not really a small school anymore. I think Lori had some nice points there, some points about not having coaches be administrators. Your position, Justin, I think is just as important as all the rest of us, though. Probably more. It should be more so because you're doing all the hiring. But I especially like the point that Lori made about what if something happens at a ball game and the coach is on the field? He can't be the athletic director then. So there are negatives to it.
Danny, I would agree on. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I would agree with you that we've had a longstanding tradition of not really weighing in on. There has been coaches that were the athletic. We've had principals that were the athletic director and a coach. So we covered the whole gamut there. But as our school continues to grow, will that actually be feasible to allow for them to focus on the entire athletic program as that grows with number of coaches, more students, more activities? If that's the most appropriate, focus of their time just focusing on athletics and making our entire athletics program better than focusing on athletics and their program that they're trying to. So from that, but I, as well as Danny, would weigh heavily on, Justin, what your perspective is in that you've held all the positions in regards to coach, athletic director, principal, superintendent. You've hit the whole gamut. So you would have a great perspective, I think, that I would like to hear at some point tonight. Lida?
Yeah, and echoing again, everybody says, I know I've heard from community members, I'm sure many of you have as well, that are frustrated that we would even think about not allowing coaches to be an AD, or, I know we've all heard. And we want to support our community and hear them and let them be heard. And I do hear them, and I understand that that's a tradition, and I get that. But again, the growth does change our perspective on things. I am concerned that we've had in the news and in the media a lot of situations where things get out of hand with fans or whatever in the stands, and you are doing double duty when you're the administrator and the coach. If something like that happens, and it's your responsibility to handle both things, and then what happens with the students, that you're trying to coach at the same time, heaven forbid they try and join in, something really goes out of crazy. I mean, we got to take care of the kids first, and that's really where I'm always going to side, is with the students first, and that's my concern. I know, Justin, at some point you had said that there were some regulations with OHSAA regarding this. I don't know if they've changed any rules, or if it's still just the same rule that you have to have an administrator and a coach there, and if they're the same person, obviously that's the big deal. But have they given any further guidance on this being a poor idea, or have they just kept the same regulation as always? So when you weigh in, if you could comment on that, I appreciate it.
The only thing that the OHSA has stated as regulations are that a school administrator or school representation needs to be, I prefer school administrator, needs to be in attendance at all home and away football contests, boys and girls basketball contests. And then obviously we, as a district, would recommend that they attend as many of the other events as they can, including tournament.
Lida, it's not really been a tradition here or anything like that. We've had plenty of athletic directors that weren't coaches as well. It was like everything else. It was almost always a financial consideration.
Sure. And I'm sorry if I did.
Yeah.
I'm with Danny there. And in the past, I mean, tradition may have gotten confused with, we just had a lack of quantity of people, if you will, to have two people doing an AD and a coach. So that could be part of that. My personal opinion is I think it depends on the person, because there's some people who could probably do both and not have, an issue of any kind. I think it's a valid point about the double duty, if something's happening in the stands and they're on the field coaching. But I mean, you can have a person appointed to handle the crowd, if you will, if something should arise. So I wouldn't think that would be a showstopper. But my personal preference overall would probably be two people if we have the quantity, if we have the applicants.
That would be my preference as well.
Justin, one other question I had. If a coach has applied for some of these positions, maybe asked, are you willing to give up the coaching position if you're elected for the athletic director?
Absolutely. For example, when I transitioned from the classroom and as a teacher first and head coach second, and moved into my first administration role, which was an athletic director position, I was given the option to either continue to remain as teacher/coach or or becoming an athletic administrator, which I chose to do, which I think led me to the principalship and then eventually the superintendency. So the district that I was working in at that time had kind of set the past precedent, practice, whatever you want to call it, that they would prefer not to have that. But that was a different district, and that was the options that I was given.
And I think our practice of allowing coaches to be the assistant AD, opposite of their sporting cycle, I think that's a great thing to continue. But looking at your perspective, Justin, for the head athletic director, what do you propose?
I mean, obviously, we're looking for somebody who can juggle a lot, especially with potential down the road school / facility projects that could include LFIs that might be athletic facilities. A big thing for me is having people in attendance at ball games that can help with issues that, I can think in particular a number of issues this year that we've had that maybe I haven't had to experience previously, with some issues with student section, some issues with opposing fans, some issues with students from a school that attended an event that weren't even involved in the contest, and potentially some illegal activities that were going on. So it'd be nice to be able to have somebody there besides just me that they can point over to and help deal with the situation.
Yeah, and I think too, especially in the fall sports, we have a lot of programs that continuously overlap. I know we had football game, soccer, volleyball, cross country, like everything's going on all over the place. A lot of them are either on the same day or somehow blend. And I think that maybe if they were also a coach in that it would become extremely difficult from that aspect. I think we have a lot of coaches right now, at least a lot of people willing to be coaches, and we're not short. I don't want to say that we should set my personal opinion is that we shouldn't set it now that the athletic director can never coach or can never be one of the coaches, because we could get into a predicament where we actually need them to coach because there is no one to coach in that aspect. So I'm not sure, I think the feeling is that we'd like the person to primarily focus on the program, especially in their first year, to dedicate to building up the program, going into a new conference, and as our programs are growing this year, setting those up for success and help lift up and support our coaches.
I could also most certainly have a conversation with those 5 individuals and see, what their thoughts are as far as, do they need to remain coaching? Is it a 2-for-1 type thing? Maybe they're not interested in coaching moving forward, and they would like to pursue some sort of a administrative position. So I have not had those conversations yet, but I can most certainly do so.
Thank you.
And Justin, my perspective is, I want to support your decision, your strategic thought, and being in all the positions. I'm inclined to support the direction you want to go.
Okay, thank you.
I think we want to avoid the Tri-Village situation that happened 2 or 3 years ago, where the coach was his own supervisor.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate incident.
Yes.
I think
I appreciate each of your input on that. If you have more, feel free to share.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fabulous sign for our programs that we have so many coaches who are willing to step up and take on the role. I think that's fantastic. We just have to be careful to make sure we have the right person. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was all I had for discussion items, unless you guys had additional items to bring up. Oh, I did have one, if that's okay.
Sure.
I kind of sent you a message on this before, but kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were in regards to, so just for community knowledge, the state of Ohio, through a House Bill Act, has made available grant dollars, which are, money, free money from the state, to help out with districts throughout the state of Ohio in regards to updating, upgrading, replacing, making younger your transportation fleet. So in our case, looking at buses. I know in the past that the district has did I think it's called purchase to lease or lease to purchase option with 4 buses in kind of hopes that the district kind of moving forward would have a little bit of a buffer, a couple of years where they weren't necessarily looking at adding additional buses. Brennan and I worked on this grant application with Gail. We kind of threw our name in the hat, not knowing what was, we knew the dollar amount, but didn't know how much we would receive based on they assessed your transportation fleet, your years of service, how many miles, et cetera. We did just receive recent notification that the district was eligible for right around $51,000 and change, as far as if we wanted to use it towards upgrading a bus in our fleet. Having spoke with Gail, she did mention that with our growth that we would probably be looking at adding an additional 2 bus routes for next year, which could potentially take a couple of spare buses off of our transportation fleet, which I think we currently have 3 spares. The addition of a potential new bus could also eliminate one of our higher mileage buses from our fleet, which we would trade in or sell back, or whatever those options are that Brendan can probably speak of, having dealt with that a lot extensively in the past. But, obviously there's some conditions with that grant dollars that I sent to you via email. If you accept the dollars and don't use it, you have to send it back. If you do use it, you have to send some sort of proof of purchase, et cetera, to make sure that people are using the money for what it's supposed to go towards. Didn't know how long the money was going to be available. I didn't really see anything within the House bill indicating for length of time. I didn't know what your thoughts were. Just to kind of give you an idea, if you would purchase a new bus, that would probably roughly pay for right around 50+% of a bus. And Brendan can kind of chime in as well.
Yeah, and I sent you guys the updated PI fund amount. We're doing pretty good. We would be able to cover our share with the PI money. The reason why we qualify is every year we have to do what's called a T2 report for the Ohio Department of Transportation. They take that data and then they evaluated all the school districts in Ohio, and based where you landed on your fleet and characteristics and how many buses you were selected. My methodology when it comes to grant money, aka what I like to call free, I know it's not right, but free money, you never pass it down. If you can make it work, you make it work, because in the end, most likely this will be available again next year. Don't know if it'll be the same dollar amount, because biannual budgets are every 2 years. So in essence, if we get it next year, you're looking at we're getting a whole brand new bus, basically with grant money, which basically wouldn't be no cost to the district or to our taxpayers.
I think it's be great for us to get some of that grant money to assist in purchasing a new bus to remove an old bus for sure. And I'm not so sure that the grant dollars will be there next year to assist in that. I was selected to be on a phone call with Governor DeWine, Lieutenant Governor Husted this week with 10 other people. And, you know, I'm not so sure how much assistance we'll get from the state next year for grants. And I think this is probably really important for us to get that assistance now.
If it's free, it's for me, even if it takes 2 years to do it. But even if it doesn't happen the second year, you're still getting half of one free.
Agreed.
And it would be an 84 passenger bus. In the past, we've bought 72. However, with us growing and we're actually having more kids go to CTC, if we get an 84 passenger bus, Gail is optimistic that we may not have to do 2 buses to CTC next year.
So I have a couple questions. What bus would be retired? Like we still have a bunch of old buses. Is that correct assumption?
I would have to work with Gail. She's right now, because the buses aren't in fleet and in, you know, transporting students, we haven't considered her essential personnel, so she hasn't really been in the district. I could reach out to her and ask for her transportation fleet Excel document that has all of the buses. I would also rely on her recommendation and also our bus mechanic, Curtis, who I think has done a really nice job in the district. His recommendation as well, as far as their working knowledge of our current buses and which one, based on maybe break fixes history and then also mileage history, what that would all look like as far as potentially removing one.
Okay, and then here's a financial question, and don't shoot me for this. This is just my out of the box idea popped in my head kind of thing. But can we take the money from the general fund since, you know, Brennan, you mentioned there's probably going to be a surplus this year, and then leave the PI fund intact more for the new construction? Or is it not allowed, or can we move the money over? Just throwing the idea.
Yeah, I mean, that is an idea, but your PI money is not necessarily for new construction. It's for maintaining or replacing your items that you have. That's why we have established the capital projects fund. That is more related to new construction. Also, we have a outside mill 2 levy that we collect taxes for every year. And so it doesn't, to me as the treasurer, if we're saying as a district we need that, and hence this would help us buy another additional bus because of the increase in the number of routes that we're going to have next year, I think it's better on a financial aspect to use the PI money to purchase that than the general fund.
Okay, so
because general fund you can use for anything, whereas PI you're limited. And so on something that can be used specifically in a PI money, I would rather use it for that, whereas general fund is more for your day-to-day operations.
So no
Julie,
new construction.
Julie, a couple of examples. Sorry to interrupt you. A couple of examples that you would traditionally use PI money for would be like repaving of a parking lot, replacing or fixing a roof.
I understand more than 5 years, but I guess I didn't realize that it was not new construction. New construction cannot come out of the PI fund?
I mean, that's not what you typically you use your PI money for. It's to maintain what you have. I mean, you can do like renovations and stuff, but it's not usually permanent improvement. It's for infrastructure you already have and to help maintain it. Whereas a capital projects fund that we've created, that's typically what you use for new construction.
So what fund were you planning on making when you were talking about making payments, like the first payment? You know, when we were talking about the financials at the last, I don't know, you probably don't remember that.
For whatever building project we do?
Yes.
So what will happen is most like the money, when we issue the money, the co-ops, that money would go into the capital projects fund. Then when we would get our TIF revenue, rather than put the money in the TIF revenue, I would be putting that money in a debt service fund to make that debt payment every year. It'd be the same way how the high school building project was done. When the bonds were issued, they went into the building fund, and then as the taxes are collected related to the principal amount for the bond, those are deposited in the debt service fund to make the debt service payment each year.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
No, that's a good question. When it comes to a bus, I would just use PI money just because that's one of the major reasons why you have a permanent improvement fund for a school district.
Brennan, where are we taking the Will Scott modular? Where is all that money coming from?
So I just worked on the rec today. I'm splitting it up as for like the deck, the steps, the ramps, and the foundation. I am using PI money related to that. For general conditions, electrical, the skirting, installation, transportation, and then the monthly rental will be coming out of the general fund.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now I have a question, because I thought at the last meeting, we said that it could not come from the PI fund because it wasn't more than 5 years.
Well, more than 5 years. The only reason I'm going to use the PI money is because we're doing the foundation part is related to the land, and so when we're working on land, no matter if it's an improvement or whatever, there's no useful life for it. It's an improvement. It's not depreciated on a GASB standard. So that's why I'm using that. When it's related to attaching to the ground, you can use PI money based on the GASB standard.
Okay.
And it's about $31,000. And then the rest will come out of general fund.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
All right. So I'm not sure we could even do an executive session this way. So the next thing on the agenda was executive session.
We can if we ever need to do one.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have a need for an executive session? All right. Not hearing any. Brendan, Brandon, you guys have anything from the public?
I do not see any other comments or questions from the YouTube video.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're getting ready close to the end of the meeting then. One of the things I'd like to say is to all our viewers and obviously to the school and staff, pay attention to the weather tonight. There's a significant weather threat coming in tonight starting around 11 p.m. They're calling for hail larger than 2 inches. Our school district is in that area that they've identified with some heavy thunderstorms and winds. So also, right, make sure you're doing your social distancing, staying at home if you can. You're one of those essential services. We thank you for all you're doing. We look forward to the support that our community gets from all our healthcare providers that have their students in our school district, as well as at work in the hospitals that support all our community. So I want to give an early shout out to them. I know that we haven't been impacted in this area significantly yet, but I know that the prediction model says we will. So, and just say thank you to, again, all our staff at the school, our leaders for leading in these trying times. I know we said in the beginning, it's an unprecedented environment that we're operating in. And so ask all our, community, if there's somebody that needs any help, please check on your neighbors, find resources. A lot of people used to turn to the school for resources or help or direction. The emails are still there. You can email in, you can contact your teachers. Any one of the platforms. Our numbers are out there as well to call the school, to get a hold of anyone, to help get resources for people that may need it. And this is our opportunity to really be Bethel Bees and to shine as one of the communities that people wish they could live in as we take care of each other and continue to be awesome. So that was kind of my closing comments. Leave it up to anyone else.
Nice summary.
Just like to
You
thank-
said it all for me.
Just like to thank everybody for the flexibility with this. Obviously, depending upon how the online session went, I think relatively speaking, it went fairly decent. Although I prefer being face to face in meetings. But thank you for being flexible with this.
Yes. Just like to thank Brennan for running the controls.
In meetings. But thank you for being flexible with this.
Yes. Just like to thank Brennan for running the there was a unique echo. All right. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
I'll move.
I got Julie as the motion, Lori as the second. Any further discussion? All right. Brennan, could you call the adjournment roll?
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes. Thank you all, and thank you to the teammates here on the board for our first Zoom excellent meeting, I think, with our community. So thank you.